Good evening, I'm Duncan Golestani. It's almost 3 weeks since Ranjith Kankanamilaj was killed in a gay hate murder in Tower Hamlets. Ranjith was known as Roy, and today police appealed for help to find his killers. They faced criticism, though, for advising people from the gay community in the area to not listen to loud music so they can remain vigilant. However, they say the same advice was offered to everyone living nearby. Ria Chatterjee reports.
Including Chris Whitty, who is now
Ranjith Kankanamilaj was 50 years old. His body was found a few weeks ago at this cemetery in East London. He wasn't responsive to paramedics. Mr Kankanamilaj died from blunt force trauma to the head. The police say this is a suspected homophobic hate crime.
But the purpose of this interview is for us to ask for witnesses to come forward.
Volunteers reopened the cemetery this morning. The police want to hear from anyone who may have been in the area between 10 p.m. on Sunday the 15th of August and 6:30 a.m. the next day. A section of advice issued by the police has been called into question. It says members of the community and local people who use the area are advised to prioritise their personal safety by being aware of their surroundings, avoiding listening to loud music and avoiding dimly lit areas where possible. An LGBTQ charity feel this isn't fair.
There is some wisdom, isn't there, in advising people to be just aware when you're out and about at night, late at night, blasting music. You are going to be less aware of what's going on around you.
Absolutely. We all have to, do what we can to protect ourselves when we're out and about. But I think just kind of putting the responsibility on LGBTQ people to protect themselves from hate crimes just isn't fair. I think LGBTQ people need to hear that the police are out there prioritising our safety and looking to protect us.
The advice was given for people in that community generally to take additional care when out and about at night. It was not specifically targeting the LGBT community.
I guess what some members of the community would say is that they feel that there's a sense of victim blaming to that. What's your response?
Absolutely not. In no way was Ranjith or Roy to blame for what happened to him. In fact, no victim is to blame for what happened to them.
Data from the Mayor's office shows there's been a rise in the number of homophobic hate crime offences across London. 5 years ago, just under 2,100 incidents were recorded over a 12-month period. Over the last year, more than 3,200 crimes took place. And more people are now unhappy with the way officers dealt with their case. In December 2014, 74% were happy with the Met. That figure has fallen to 62%. The officer says hate crime is a priority and that the force works closely with LGBTQ charities to understand how best to serve them. Mr Kankanamilaj's family is being supported by the police. They released this photo of him in tribute. Ria Chatterjee, ITV News.
A teenage neo-Nazi who wanted to shoot one of his Asian friends has been found guilty of plotting terrorist acts. 18-year-old Matthew Kronjager tried to get hold of a weapon to kill his target, who he likened to a cockroach, the Old Bailey was told. He also set up an online library to share right-wing propaganda and explosives. Next tonight, Shadesha White has been homeless for over 5 years. At just 18 years old, she's won a legal fight against Brent Council, who she said wasn't able to apply for social housing. But her campaign hasn't finished there. She's now taking the council to court to help others in the same position. Brent Council say it was a technical error, as Katie Barnfield explains.
Welcome to
Shadesha has been living in this hotel room for 4 months. Even this is one of the most stable homes she's ever had. For most of her teenage years, her family were homeless, often sleeping outside on the streets.
We would basically take the bus back and forth to Heathrow. It would be the 140. Sometimes we would just sit on the benches there, and I would put my hood up and zip up and then just fall asleep.
When she turned 18 recently, she tried to apply for a permanent council home. But despite being homeless, Brent Council told her she was classed as having no priority for housing, and she was banned from bidding for any properties.
And when they said that, I was like, I'm so young, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to be back on the streets. Everything rushed through my head. I was thinking I was going to lose all my stuff again, because I've never actually had like clothes or toys for longer than like 6 months.
With the help of the law firm contacted by her school, she managed to overturn the decision. But her solicitor says there are many more people in the same situation, being illegally banned from applying for housing.
So effectively, there could be hundreds of people right now who are homeless, who if they were living in another borough in London and applied for a council home, they'd be eligible. If they apply in Brent, they're not. Yeah, effectively, yes. I mean, in fact, we made a Freedom of Information request to Brent Council, and we're able to discover that at the start of August, there were about 640 people who are currently on the housing register identified as homeless, but prohibited from bidding.
Brent Council accepted they've made a mistake, telling us, we were recently made aware of a technical error in our housing allocation scheme. As a short-term emergency measure, we are moving those who are currently homeless or threatened with homelessness into a category where they can now bid for properties. Shadesha is now taking the council to court, trying to force them to change their housing policy as quickly as possible. Even though her case has been solved, she says she'll keep fighting to give others the chance to find a real home. Katie Barnfield, ITV News.
Now, after 2 years of disruption and with fewer restrictions in place, children starting school now can hope for more normal days ahead. At Cumberland School in Newham, Year 7 started today. Martin Stew was there too to see how day one went.
300 new pupils, 3,000 age-old concerns.
How am I going to do? Is it going to be okay? Is there going to be something bad?
Do you think you'll get lost?
Probably.
Teachers at the Cumberland School in Newham did their best to stop that happening.
Could you put your hands up and wave?
Building school spirit with communal poetry.
Charge for the guns, he said!
And some guidance from Year 8 ambassadors. It's a taste of a new normality after a year and a half of disruption. How did you find learning from home? How difficult was it?
It was pretty difficult because you didn't get help.
I'd rather do it like face-to-face with like a teacher.
I missed out on learning and more opportunities.
Testing will continue, but the days of sending whole bubbles home are gone, for now at least.
There was a lot of stop and start last year, and it's affected a lot of people. I'm particularly looking forward to bubbles not being sent home, because that caused a huge amount of disruption.
The ability of pupils has always varied. Staff anticipate the pandemic will have widened the gap.
Other people, they're pretty smart, and I'm like not worried that they're like on top, I'm on the bottom.
Do you worry that some people might be further ahead than you?
Yeah, but I can just catch up if I really work hard.
As well as that, there's plenty to be excited about.
Made any friends?
Yeah.
Smart new gear.
I have to tie it every morning, make sure it's good.
And delicious grub.
I like the lunch because it was way more bigger than the one in primary school.
Good morning.
Everything seems better with a full tummy. Martin Stew, ITV News.
And finally, Sir Elton John today announced he will finish his last ever tour in London in June next year, which will undoubtedly be an emotional night for the singer whose career was shaped in the capital from childhood. The Farewell Yellow Brick Road Tour restarts later this month, takes in the O2 Arena before going around the world and finishing at the Hyde Park Festival next year. On to the weather now. Here's Philippa Drew.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV London weekend weather.
Good evening. It has been a very quiet end to the working week weather-wise, and more of the same to come this weekend. Staying dry, further sunny spells to be found, and warming up as the days go on, not just through the weekend but into the early part of the new week as well. Out there at the moment then, quite a bit of cloud now feeding in from the north and east, holding on to a few clearer spells down towards the south and west of our patch. But I think for all of us, temperatures generally staying up in double figures, lows of 10 or 11 Celsius by dawn. Tomorrow morning then, a bit more cloud on the scene than we saw this morning, and it will take its time to lift and break, but we will see some sunny spells coming through. And in the best of the sunshine, temperatures peaking at 21 or 22 Celsius. But it's through the next few days that things really start to improve. This is the situation as we head through the latter stages of Saturday and into Sunday. High pressure holding on, and you can see less in the way of cloud as we head through the weekend. So I think sunnier skies coming our way to round off the weekend, and then conditions continuing to improve into the new week. Increasing amounts of sunshine, those winds veering round to a south or southeasterly, drawing up some warm air from the continent. Highs potentially around 28 Celsius on Tuesday.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV London weekend weather.
And that's how it's looking in London. We're back tomorrow evening. From all of us here on the London team, have a lovely weekend. Good night.